So I'm just going to do a little carry-on video from the last one that I did about all the unusual bits and bobs I have, and I've just made one or two little changes. The reason I'm showing you is because I want you to believe in yourselves, really, and I want you to not fear moving things. Even after you've changed something, it never hurts to reevaluate again and make quick changes. But I just thought I'd do a quick update on where I've got with it all. I've got a couple of nice changes that I want to show you. So I've added some normal pots in front of the cow feeders, which you can see there, and it all kind of sets the scene and all looks good. So don't be afraid to use normal pots, even though I was showing you wacky ones. Don't be afraid to use them, because they do have the place. There's another one to the left of that clay pot there, and that's actually a find of mine. It was left behind at somebody's house. They didn't want it, so I took it. And that's the stone one. I've had it quite a while, but I've never used it yet. And what I did the other day was I moved this. So I did show this on the last video, but I decided to move it because it was never in the right place. And it always bugged me because I just left it there. And I was a bit idle, really. I've moved the little bucket, the little wacky bucket. I love this bucket. And that oster is now starting to grow. And the other osters are well above that. That one there's one called Oster Crosser Regal, whereas that one there, that one's Devon Green. The nice one here, just in case anyone was wondering, that one's called Hoster Catherine. And I got that one because of Kathy, my girlfriend, so I thought that'd be nice thing for her to see. So yes, I moved that. Now the only thing bugging me here at the moment is this pipe. Although the gutters are white and the pipe's white, it kind of gripes at me because I prefer them to be black, so they just disappeared a little bit. And I am seriously contemplating painting it black. But I don't know at the minute because it kind of works with everything else that's going on. It's just, it just bugs me that you can really see it running down that wall. So here's the other feeder, and I've just done like a little collection, and it's something that I do all the time. And it's one good thing with pots and planters is that you can have a move around all the time with them, and you can change them to suit your mood, which is what I've been doing. Now, one thing that I've also done, just to re-inspire you again, is I've created something called Franken. We all remember Frankenstein, and I've created something called Franken. And this is him. And you can see why I've called it Franken. What I've done is I've taken out about maybe 9 inches of the actual thing. So I cut this dustbin. It was a full dustbin, but it leaked, so I couldn't use it as a container anymore. And it's one I put in the video the other day. But yesterday, I had this crazy brainwave of cutting out the middle section of it, pushing it inside itself, and then pinning it up with these. And I love these. Now, these are a bit shiny at the moment. They are going to be dulled down. I'm going to find something that'll dull that down. And I really like that. It's kind of stitched it together, a bit like Frankenstein. So I call it Franken. And it's going to have this in it. I've not put it in yet, but just to show you inside, so you can see, there are all those bolts. I'm just going to leave those. There's no point in changing them. I might as well just leave them, fill it up with soil, and then just plant that sorbus into it. And that one's Kashmiriana. So that was a little bit of a inspired change that I made. And I know I've been asked where I get my ideas from. Well, that one just popped into my head as I was walking around the garden. And I just made it. I got a cutter to cut out the bin, so I had to draw a line around it so I'd get the line right. Now, and I appreciate the studs are not really in a perfect line, but that's how I like it. I like it a bit wacky, a bit rustic. So that's Franken. Now, the other thing I've done is I've added another bin, so that's the twin bins. And I put another one here because, to be honest with you, when this wall was built, the builders decided, and it's a great wall, not knocking the wall, the builders decided that they would put all the chalk that they obviously used as the hardcore underneath the wall, they'd obviously just pushed it back, and everywhere in there I can dig down literally 6 inches and I can find lots and lots of chalk. Now, I'm on chalk, as I've said before. I'm on chalk here, so I'm always going to find it, but it's excessive here. There's Amish coming for a look again. And what was I saying? Yeah. So nothing really grows, and it's a bit of a bank here as well, as you can see. So the best way to get over that was to use planters. And as I said before, the reason I put this in a planter is because, or in this old dustbin, is simply because it's a runner and I don't want it getting carried away. And then this is just a bamboo. And I'm not sure which one this one is, because I found it in one of my pots just growing wild, and I can't work out whether it came from a little seedling or whether it was a bit of a little root that I must have picked up somewhere. But I think it's looking good, and it was a tiny one little stem when I first found it, and 3 years on it's this beast. I haven't fully confirmed what it is yet, but if it is what I think it is, then it's going to be a bit of a large clumper rather than a small clumper or a slow clumper. This is a vigorous, fast clumper, so I shall ultimately keep it in some sort of a pot. Now, it won't be in this dustbin. That's just been put in there just for now. And I will find some, and this is where plant combinations come in. Once that Rheum australe gets bigger leaves, and it'll get a bit bigger than that, then it should complement the bamboo perfectly. So that's the twin bins. Now, the other thing I've done, and you may think I'm putting too much around this pond, but I'm not. I've added the oil barrel, as you can see, and it's got a hoster in it. And I think I mentioned this the other day, that the slugs were enjoying it because it's called Empress Woo, and for some reason that's the only one they seem to be attacking at the moment. And I decided that I didn't want them to decimate it too much. I'll get a bit closer in a minute, but I think you can make out the holes in it. There you go, you can see all the holes in it. And Empress Woo is a really, really big hoster, and it's gonna look terrible if I don't do something about it. So I decided, right, okay, we've got all that going on at the moment, which is good, but it's not gonna hurt to add something else. So that's what I've done. I've added that oil. Well, it contained oil, and I've cut it in half, and I've actually got 2 containers out of it, the other one over there. So that's a good use of a tin, and a good use of where to put it as well. And what I've done is I've actually sunk it in the ground by about 6 inches. So it sits in its environment a little bit better, but it matches up with the rusty fence behind it, and it works. It just works. And then the hoster will eventually make 4 to 5 foot. And there's plenty of room in there for it to get that big and that tall. And it should be looking good at that point. So they're little changes that I've made. And although it wasn't long ago that I was messing about with this area, you've seen that I've made constant changes to it. So when you think something's finished, generally it's not. There's always improvements to be made. You should never fear making those changes. Now, these aren't reclaimed. I bought these are poppy heads, but things like this can look really effective in gardens, and I move them all over the place. And at the moment, they're just doing that. They're just sitting in a line. I'd like lots more of those, but at the moment, I've only got 3. This is the other Rheum. This is the Rheum palmatum that I keep talking about. And those little reddy things there, that's the flower about to develop. There's 2 of them. And the downside to this, it's looking absolutely stunning, this. I've been looking back at some of my old pictures, and it was big. The leaves were actually bigger than this last year. but then it was a later photograph. Now, what happens when they flower? It never flowered last year, is what I was going to say. But once they flower, what they tend to do is they tend to sacrifice the leaves then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow it to send up its flowers and to open them, and then I'm going to chop them off. I've done it in previous gardens, and it stops the main leaves from dying straight away, because that's what they tend to do once they've gone through the seeding. They do hang on a bit longer, but eventually it will just all collapse and die away. So I keep removing the flower heads. So I just wanted to show you that, not to be afraid to actually make these little changes and keep adapting, keep changing things. It's definitely worth doing, and it looks good. That looks good. That looks better than I thought it would look, actually. There's that little shrub to go in still. It's a carpeting shrub, and that's a prunus, and that will be fine. I'll leave it in there for now. I'm not fully committed to putting it in there at the moment. I've got other places I'd like to put it. But while we're this side of the rheum, there you go. You can see both of those flower heads just setting. As I say, it's a bit of a nightmare for me. And while we're on the subject of putting unusual things in your garden, I did show you the plant supports, but here's another one that I've got. And that one's going to contain the Rudbeckia. And there's no real reason for the Rudbeckia to have that, and it's Rudbeckia lanceolata Herbstonner, and it's quite a tall Rudbeckia. There's no real reason, but other than that, I like, without the rope anyway, I like the look that they give, and they give interest through winter as well. And as I showed you last week, there's that tin. That grass has probably grown 6 inches since I last videoed it. And then we've got a secondary one. Here's another one doing its thing. And this one, although it shouldn't require it, Elianthus augialis is a very, very tall plant, 9-10 footer. And sometimes it has this annoying habit of just flopping over. So there you go, little changes I've made. I never fear making changes. The idea just pops in my head, and then I think it's got to be done. And within minutes, I can have changed something without even thinking about it. Just give you a shot of the garden before we call this one it. And there you go. Never be afraid to change. I do it often. Okay, I'll talk to you on the next one. Ta-da.